Hello, hello, welcome, please come in. It's time to resume our Summoners Only runs in this, Final Fantasy VIII. Now, in prior series, I have typically avoided entries in the franchise that do not have dedicated job class systems. However, we can't actually do that here because there simply aren't enough mainline Final Fantasies with job classes that also have summoners, so we're gonna have to get a bit creative. And this will be the first entry in that creativity. So, after picking up my first 2 GFs from the computer, telling Selphie I don't have time for her, I'll be seeing a lot of her later. It's out to the beach to immediately start grinding out Fastisticalins, and here's where we need to establish the rules. So, item 1, I can only deal damage to enemies by summoning GFs. Summoners technically have other methods of dealing damage in other games, but that mostly amounts to ineffective physical attacks, so we're going to make the blanket statement that I can only deal damage to enemies with GFs. The attack command will be fully banned. All remaining commands will also be banned, with the exception of the item command, which is of course fine because summoners use items a lot, especially because they have no other means of healing in most games, including this one. So, with that grinding done, it's into the Fire Cavern. I give myself 20 minutes to complete this disaster because the big thing about GFs and FF8 is that their summon animations are very, very long. Now, normally this allows you to use the boost ability to strengthen your summons, however that requires spamming a button a bunch across the entire playthrough, and that sounds annoying. I did try to map the button to a turbo function in the Steam interface, and it didn't really work at all. So no boost for me because I am not interested in spamming square for the next 12 hours. And that is it for defeated very easily by just spamming GF. And with that, it's time for the seed test. So take a car to Balam, ride a boat over to Dollet, and it's into a whole bunch of fights. Now, I haven't really had a good opportunity to level up or learn any abilities, but I'm kind of just hoping that I don't need to. And here's one of the best places to level up in the game. As those in the know will know, leveling up in FF8 is largely a trap, but with no access to the card ability or petrification, my best option is to level up right now with Cypher. He will gain experience, but he never rejoins the party, so who cares? Cut to a decent amount of grinding with GFs against the enemies here. Hooray! My GF health is getting a bit low. Do I have any way to heal these? They seem to be getting healed between fights? Do GFs heal to full when they level? That would be convenient. GFs require less experience than a character, though experience is divided between all GFs on said character. Oh, and GFs also still gain experience when junctioned to a character that is in the party but incapacitated. I'm not actually going to realize this properly until later, but suffice to say I could have gotten more levels here. And actually, I'm done getting levels because this is boring. Next boss time, Biggs and Wedge. As in most fights up until now, my only plan is to spam GFs to deal what damage I can. This is more than enough for these idiots, and in comes Elverit. Like with my magic only run, I am also allowing the draw command, both to access magic and access new GFs, though I don't know how useful any drawn GFs end up being. The drawing magic is mostly so I don't have to play cards as much, which will end up less relevant than I expected. We'll get to it shortly. Anyway, there isn't really strategy here, slight problem though. 2 of my 3 GFs are dead, which is bad because none of my items will heal them. This ends up not being a huge issue here as one more summon takes out Elverit, but it's gonna be a problem later. Anyway, that fight done, I've acquired Siren, and she needs to start learning life magic refinement right now. I really need more health. And yeah, sure, revive my GFs. I need more G items. Oh, and now comes the bigger problem, the giant metal crab. Good news, it is weak to thunder magic, and Squill's compatibility is high enough that the summon time is very quick. Which is good, because I have no way to heal my GFs beyond resurrecting them, and I don't have many of those left. So, caution is the name of the game. Slowly fighting the crab, and trying my absolute best to avoid fights as best as I possibly can, and this does mostly work. There are tricks on most screens to avoid fighting this idiot, and thank you Quistis for the last minute save. Back in Balam, and they sell G-potions. Let me just buy some of these. And while I'm at it, I should do just a bit more leveling. I don't want to overdo it, but I need just a bit more AP. Mostly because I want to unlock card mods so I can start converting cards into items, and then those items into magic. And with that early grinding done, it's back to Balam Garden to be informed that I have, indeed, passed the seed examination. Change outfits, do a little dance, and it's into the training center to listen to Quistis' problems, and then another boss fight to deal with. Grinaldo is a big bug that comes with 3 smaller bugs. Good thing GFs hit all targets. One summon takes out the minions, and another couple end the boss fight entirely. Okay, this is going mostly okay. Which is good, because I'm pretty limited in my options to be stronger at this point. And with those very early sections completed, it's time for some tests. Because being able to use items in combat doesn't mean anything if I can't actually afford to purchase any. So, passing tests will increase my salary, and means I get more money every time that triggers. And then it's card time, because yeah, cards were going to be inevitable at this point in the game. It is always tricky to win some better cards early on, because the beginner cards you get access to are absolute trash, but once you get some decent cards, you can start a run on the game, which should be very useful in getting some items to really get into this playthrough. First, I need to get some special cards. First is Minimog, then over to the cafeteria to grab the Quistis card. How useful will these actually be for refinement? At least they are pretty good cards. The biggest gets are Mesmerizes for regen, Pigs and Wedge might be useful for X potions, best magic junction I could probably get at this point is Tornadoes through the Abyss Worm card. Tornado isn't exceptional as far as the magic stat goes, but with the level scaling in this game, that should sort me out for a while. And with that done, it's time to use the magic lamp to get my next GF, Diablos, and let's see how that magic is doing. I would have expected that to deal more damage. It's been a while since I used GFs, but wait, how do GFs calculate their damage output? Oh, I see. So it turns out GFs completely bypass character stats. The only way to up a GF's damage is to learn the Summon Magic Plus abilities or level them up. And considering how dangerous leveling up is in this game, that could be a problem. Now, good news is I have items to heal in this fight, which helps. Diablo 2's most dangerous attacks are also percentage-based, but the damage is based on the summoner, not the GF, so they're basically dealing no damage. And yeah, it turns out you can just spam GF and win this fight pretty easily. Who knew? Still gonna be a problem with damage going forward, though. But we're just gonna hope that's fine. It does mean the first priority on my list is to learn Summon Magic Plus with every GF I plan on actually summoning. Anyway, on to the train, it's time for Laguna sequence. Nothing here is interesting. There are no mandatory fights, and the sections in Dealing City are not relevant to the run. Moving swiftly on. Into Timber, where I sadly can't access the pet shop yet. I do have one quick thing to do once I'm on the train, though, and that is play some more cards, sadly. I'm really just looking for the Angelo card because it refines into 100 elixirs, which should mostly cover my healing needs for a while. Then a tutorial on how to do a train heist, then the actual train heist. Nothing here is interesting, though I will say it is easier to do these inputs when it actually displays the correct buttons and not random keyboard inputs like on PC, so that's a nice improvement. Anyway, redo my entire junction setup because this game is stupid, and it's next boss time. And it's summon time. This boss can be killed with a single Phoenix down, and I can technically use items, but that feels kind of cheap in the GF only run. Although Ifrit is dealing really good damage, and yeah, should have just used a Phoenix down. That was easy. Okay, now I can access the pet shop. Time to buy some healing items. I can't use these in combat, but being able to actually heal my GFs at all times should be very useful. Then it's time for an announcement, and it goes great, and nothing bad happens at all. So it's time to bail. On a train, then into the woods, where there is another Laguna sequence. This one is slightly more interesting in that there are actual fights here, but GFs can kill them all quite quickly, making this another nothing sequence to get through. Bluntly, this will hold true for all of the Laguna sequences. And here we are, Galbadia Garden. The next item on our team's to-do list is murder, which is fine, that's what we're best at. And this requires another train journey with nothing interesting happening, and here we are, Dealing City. And first thing I need to do is find out where I'm going, because I'm very lost. There we go. Anyway, I can't do my job until this guy lets me through, and that means tomb time, and that means Minotaur time. My damage output here is not great, and while Minotaur is oddly not immune to Diablos, Diablos is too low a level to be that useful. Oh well, that's what happens when you forget to heal, like an idiot. This actually happens a lot in this run, mostly because I'm not used to my GFs taking damage or needing to heal when I can mostly just use some cure magic normally. I don't think it ever actually caused a problem, but it sure is a headache. Okay, run around completed, it's time for the proper brothers fight. Normally I'd want to float them so they lose their passive healing, but that is obviously off the table. Instead, the hope is that I can just deal enough damage to outpace it, and yeah, that looks good enough. It's not great damage, especially with the numbers I'm used to in this game, but it should do. And that gets me a new GF, Brothers, who is pretty low level, which isn't ideal. At least it gives HP bonuses. That should help with survivability. Anyway, back to Delling to learn the plan, which is bad, and communicated stupidly, but that's basically FF8 in a nutshell. Renoa then causes some problems, and I need to run through a sewer, and we jump forward to the next boss fight, the Iguians. First item on the list is to draw Carbuncle. Oh, they're dead. Wow, that was easy. At least they give me a new GF. One of the few GFs that doesn't deal damage, which may actually be useful. And more sewers time, and skipping ahead, and it's time to fight Cypher solo, which is as easy as ever. I'm prioritizing using the same GFs as much as I can. This boosts that GF's compatibility, making summoning happen much, much faster. Plus, with all my GFs being the same level, it just makes the most sense. And with Cypher easily beaten, it's time to wrap up Disc 1 by facing down Adia. Here I can use Carbuncle for the first time to give the entire party Reflect. Adia likes to cast spells, and that will mitigate those attacks by a lot. Then it's just spam GFs until the cutscene gods say that Disc 1 is over. And with Disc 2 started, it's time for another Laguna sequence that doesn't matter, and this is a whole long sequence that doesn't really have anything interesting about it. I do love that this introduces an anti-magic field as a concept in this game, and then has it mechanically do literally nothing. Very strange. I get into another fight with Biggs and Wedge, and 3 summons later, the fight is over, which is great. Because yeah, a lot of this playthrough ended up being watching summons play out on screen. It's great! Getting out of Galbadia prison requires running up a bunch of stairs, then running back up, the exact same stairs. Seriously, the Galbadia dungeon sucks, but after that I get to run downstairs. It's a party! And then it's time for another boss, the somethings. Oh, that was a lot of damage. Oh yeah, it's our old friend, percentage damage. Micro missiles deal a percentage of the target's max HP, but it looks at the character, not the GF. And with my entire character setup with very good HP junctions, that could actually be a problem. I mean, it isn't, because the boss falls over like wet tissue paper, but I will need to be careful about that in future boss fights. And with that, the party must split up to stop missiles from launching and get everyone evacuated from Balam Garden. We actually fail at both of these, huh? Oh well. Into the missile depot, chat with some soldiers, beat up some other soldiers, and it's time to arm a self-destruct sequence. For which I am absolutely setting the maximum time I can. Do I need that much time? Hard to say, but these summon animations are not getting any shorter. And there is a boss, a big tank. Nothing too exciting here, my damage continues to be mediocre. The boss doesn't have any percentage-based attacks, and I have functionally infinite health. Goodbye. Back in Balam Garden, we have a fun civil war going on, which results in a bunch of very boring fights. After I take a little nap. Gotta get my beauty sleep in. Anyway, Sid has a plan. The plan is not very good, and Sid is 1,000 years old. Time for us to handle it. By diving below the school, climbing down an elevator shaft, slowly spinning this wheel, and it's next boss time. The oil boils are pretty easy, just spam more summons against, although they do have surprisingly strong attacks. Not strong enough to really care about, but still. Activating this means we have now acquired flight, and it's missile dodging time. Then drift through the ocean, and it's time to confront Norg, who exists. And this fight could be a bit of a problem. Norg has 2 orbs that slowly switch to red. Once red, they cast offensive spells pretty aggressively. Now, normally you can attack these to turn them back to blue, except summons don't trigger that, so I'm stuck with offensive spells. Good news, I have Carbuncle. This helps with many spells, though he does still have some that cannot be reflected, and he also can cast Dispel. I also can't deal any real damage until I break open the stupid shell he's hiding behind, but once that opens, I can take a quick minute to draw out Leviathan, then continue my barrage of summons. As has become the norm, this is kind of a slow process, but also inevitable. And that gets me Leviathan, which is a higher level than most of my other summons. Do GFs scale the level you get them at in some way? Interesting. That could make later summons even more valuable. We'll see. Norg defeated and the school saved. It's time to play more cards for some reason? Okay, still no idea why. Sid gives me some background on what is actually going on right now and then hand over a loan to the White Seed ship. And now it's time to crash into Fisherman's Horizon. They have incredibly skilled engineers, for some reason, and can get the garden actually mobile again. But first, it's time for what generously qualifies as a boss. The big tank from earlier, but now it's really beat up. And then a little concert for which I pick completely random instruments because I simply do not care. That all done, the garden is now mobile and an entire school is now subject to the whims of some random idiot, aka me. Let's head over to Balam. Oh right, I have to have Zell for the next section. Oh, I should win his card from his mom. Maybe it becomes something useful. Nope, okay then. Hunt down Raijin and then fight Raijin. This fight is not difficult. Fujin absolutely carries this duo. Speaking of, time for the proper boss fight. Oh, should have healed Zell. Good thing I have plenty of healing items. I also need to take a moment to grab my next GF, Pandemona. And then you guessed it, it's time to just spam GFs. My damage is still awful, at least by the standards I'm used to in this game, but it turns out FF8 is really easy, you don't even need to break it completely. Now, the next story destination is Trabia Garden, but it's time for a side quest. That side quest is Cactars. These give 20 AP when killed, slight problem. They are incredibly durable to basically all magic and run away very quickly. Good news, they are weak to Leviathan, which takes time to summon and isn't a one-shot. Yeah, gaining new abilities is going to be a bit of a mess, but that's okay. I'll make it work. Okay, well that sucked. Time to do another side quest in the Cetra Ruins. Can Odin trigger against Cactars? I may be stupid. Anyway, Cetra Ruins solves some very simple puzzles and we fight Odin. Odin does literally nothing until the timer elapses, so it's actually time to just drain a lot of magic from him. Most character stats don't matter, but defensive stats and speed do, and triple is great for speed. So that should be very useful. And once I get bored of that, I can spam GFs to finish the fight with loads of time to spare. I would like to also get Tonberry while I'm here, but this would take way too long. My damage is absolute garbage, and based on Diablos' level, the Tonberries have almost 20,000 health, so no, I'll come back for you later. Instead, it's time to head over to Trabia Garden for some more story. And with that completed, it's time to do the big garden battle, which involves mostly just running around garden a bunch before one very easy mandatory fight, and a very annoying aerial fight minigame. And it's in to Galbadia Garden for the next boss fight against my next GF, Cerberus. Cerberus can cast some decently strong magic. This does very little to my actual characters thanks to my HP junctions, but I do need to be careful with summons. As with previous fights, the whole strategy here is just spam summons, hope it's enough, which it is. Cerberus does give me another speed junction, or it will once I learn that, so that's useful at least. And that leads right into the next boss fight against just Cypher. And this is not really worth worrying about, Cypher is easy in any playthrough, and that will not be changing here. What a chump. But then comes the final boss of Disc 2, which could actually be tricky. No, not you, Cypher. Yes, you, Adia. First, I need to draw Alexander to add to my GF collection, but then comes the problems. Adia has Maelstrom, which deals huge damage to the party because it is, again, percentage-based. This can easily take out a lot of a GF's health, or kill it outright. I have Carbuncle for Reflect, but Adia also has access to Dispel, and Death, and Adia does not mess around in this phase, spamming very annoying spells for the entire fight. It helps that I have a decent supply of remedies and elixirs. A lot, actually. But it is a bit tricky trying to keep my party healed, reflected, and actually deal any damage at all around Adia's very quickly trying to kill my party. Final annoyance is that Adia has Slow, a status effect I have absolutely no way to cure. But thanks in no small part to my low level, Adia doesn't actually have that much health, and eventually goes down to my many spammed summons. Now that I'm into Disc 3, I can head to the orphanage to be drowned in backstory from Adia. Then play some cards to grab the Cypher card, probably not worth doing, but better to have it in case the card mod is useful. Oh, I should also grab the Adia card while I'm here. It's probably also not going to be useful, but it's good. Okay, now where is that White Seed ship? Seriously, where is this stupid ship? I swear, every time I play this game, the White Seed ship changes location. It is the only explanation for how much of a pain it is to... Wait, do I even have Adia's letter? I'm an idiot. Let me chat with Renoa real quick, because yeah, no, it's time for a Laguna sequence actually, not a hunt for a stupid ship. This minigame is really awful, but it only takes 2 attempts. Then an actual fight with a red dragon, which is not really interesting either. Though I did forget to heal my GFs, which is a bit of a rough thing to deal with. It ends up being fine though. Okay, that done, I can chat with Adia and actually get the letter I need, and yeah, it turns out it is much easier to find the White Seed ship when it's actually there. Back to Fisherman's Horizon, where Squall starts the long walk to Esther. He is somehow beaten to Esther by the rest of the team, which doesn't really make any sense, but okay. And the Salt Flats leads to a boss against Abaddon. This boss can be killed by items, but that does feel a bit cheaty. I did say I can only deal damage to bosses with GFs, so that's what we're going to do. Good news is Abaddon is really weak regardless, and is particularly vulnerable to Holy and Fire. So that was technically a longer fight than normal, but not by much. Once in Esther proper, I have to do another Laguna sequence, which continues to be very easy and not that interesting, and that is Esther done. Let me grab the Solomon ring. It's probably not worth it, but I might as well. And now we get shot into space. Just in time for the Lunatic Pandora to show up and be a very minor problem. We chase it down, get onto it, get thrown off it, and that is the Lunatic Pandora. Hooray! Back in space, things are going great, so it's time for that to change drastically. Renoa is awake, she is mad about that, which is fair, and it's time to get a fancy space station absolutely wrecked by monsters. Then a fun drift through space to rescue Renoa and reach the most conveniently placed spaceship in history. On said convenient spaceship, I do now need to deal with another monster infestation. Good news is that the propagators are not especially strong, and can be pretty easily summoned away in a few attacks. Goodbye, propagators. Hello, spaceship, then I could actually fly, and this changes everything. Just as soon as I immediately rescue Renoa to get her back into the party. And first item on the list is doing the Card Club side quest. Completing this will put the Card Club on the Ragnarok in Disc 4, which is going to be very, very important for reasons I'll get to later. This is not a short process, but thanks to my many high-level cards, it is a fairly easy one. Oh hey, Gilgamesh card. Neat. Anyway, card nonsense complete, it's back to the Ragnarok, and in the corner of the map is this super fun, secret military facility. Not sure whose military this belonged to, but that's fine. Here I need to beat up some ruby dragons, which seem oddly durable. Oh right, the enemies here get 15 levels tacked onto the normal scaling formula. And 15 is a lot of levels when my average party level is as low as it currently is. That took a lot to take down one dragon. So instead, it's time for some silliness. Back to Cactar Island, except now I can actually land on the island itself because it's time to get another GF. Big Cactar. And this fight is tricky. Jumbo Cactar can hit fairly hard, particularly with its 10,000 Needles attack, which deals 10,000 damage. If that hits a character, it's mostly fine because Phoenix Downs exist. If it hits a GF, particularly my primary damage dealer Leviathan, that would be a problem. The other issue is that when Jumbo Cactar gets to low health, it will start to run away. If I don't kill it quickly, that is the fight ended with all my effort wasted. So, let's be very careful and see how this goes. Okay, the Cactar is hesitating, and it escaped. Crap, okay. Time for cards to save the day. I can mod the Quistis card I got earlier into 3 Samantha Souls. Then use one of these on Leviathan to give it the summon magic plus 40%. This stacks with the other summon magic boosts, and Leviathan doesn't learn it naturally. So that's just a considerable bonus to my Leviathan damage. And that little buff is enough to push the fight over the edge. Cactar acquired. And Cactar has a unique damage formula. It will always deal damage equal to 1,000 for every 10 levels it has. But of course, how am I going to scale that up without running into issues being over-leveled? Well, that is where the island closest to heaven comes in. The enemies here are always scaled to level 100, and by killing everyone other than Selphie, I can get into a fight, hope Odin triggers to end the fight immediately, and rack up the experience. GFs, junction to characters, still get experience, even if that character is dead. And while Selphie will continue to get experience and reach higher and higher levels, the level scaling in this game only takes into account characters in the active party, which will not include Selphie ever again. So hold please, let the tedium commence. And there we go, we have the levels we need to head back to the Deep Sea Research Facility and face down those stupid ruby dragons. They are still a fairly high level, but now, so are many of my summons. Diablos is now dealing max damage, and so is Cactar, which means things just go a whole lot easier. Oh thanks Odin, you've been very helpful. And hello Bahamut. I have bad news about what's about to happen to you. I can't use Diablos because this is a boss, but Cactar works on everything and hits for the damage cap. Even my other GFs are dealing pretty decent damage thanks to the level gap between my GFs and the boss. Bahamut is also nice because it bypasses the spirit stat of the target, and so can deal more damage than many GFs. Back to the Cetra Ruins where I got Odin to grab another GF. And I'll be the first to admit, this ends up not being a super good use of my time, but Diablos and Cactar can deal max damage with every summon, so I can melt through the Tonberries very quickly until the main Tonberry King arrives, who also gets wrecked by overpowered summons. This gives me the Tonberry summon, which is not useful. At least it will give me Call Shop and Disc 4, which I don't think is ever relevant, and fine, I'll go ahead and grab the items needed to unlock Doom Train. Doom Train would normally be useful to inflict Meltdown, but bluntly it won't be because all my best damage options deal static damage or bypass the target's spirit, so who cares? Okay, it's back to the main story, finally. Sad stuff at the orphanage, then the greatest plan of all time is devised in Esther, then blast my way into the lunatic Pandora. No clever schemes here, just violence. High Fusion, High Raijin, Bye Fusion, Bye Raijin. Then this boss, which has mechanics, I'm sure of it. None of those mechanics matter to me, thanks to the overwhelming power of my summons. I will say boss health amounts are starting to get pretty high even at low party levels. Hi Cypher. Goodbye Odin, you have done well. Also goodbye Cypher. That gets me into Disc 4 and the next fight could be tricky. Adele is attempting to subsume Rinoa. If she dies, it's game over. And GFs attack all enemies, but I have a few plans for this. And by a few, I mean I'm going to summon Bahamut. It's going to hit both targets, and then I'm going to use an elixir to heal Rinoa back to full. Bahamut isn't strong enough to kill, and I have a ton of elixirs on hand thanks to card modding the Angelo card. This makes this boss a little tricky, but not like that tricky. Adele has strong magic, but thanks to my health junctions, nothing Adele can do is actually threatening, really at all. This fight ends up just being tedious because of all the healing I have to do, and I can't use my best damage options. And now begins time compression, where things go all wobbly. This leads into a bunch of fights against various sorceresses, all of whom require aggressive acupuncture. Stat. And I think this final form counts as a boss, technically? It shouldn't, it's way too easy, but again, a lot of that comes down to Cactar dealing such good damage. And here we are, Ultimisha's castle, and my abilities are sealed, so it's time to break the rules of the challenge for one fight where I can just use attack. And yes, there are technically ways to unlock your command via return damage against the red giant. No, I won't be doing them because that is super tedious. I'm just going to accept that I'm breaking the rules and attacking the first boss until it dies. And beating that first boss unlocks the GF ability. Huzzah! And my immediate next stop is the fight against Tiamat, because here, finally I get access to the final summon of the game, and main plan for damage in the final fight, Eden. Oh, wait, I need to fight something else first. I don't have the draw command. Krista, hi! How needleable are you? Very, it would seem. Fantastic. Now it's time to draw Eden from Tiamat, who can't even hurt me thanks to some fire junctions. That also gives me the item command, which is the last command I need at all. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm wrong. I should also unlock the ability to resurrect allies. And you know what? The ability to save, so if something goes wrong in the final fight, it won't go too wrong. Okay, that's all of that. Now I just need to make my way back to the Ragnarok. The card club are here, which is nice, and it's time to do a lot of work. I need to grab the fat chocobo card from this girl on the left, and then do a lot more leveling on the island closest to heaven. It's gonna be more of a pain without Odin, but it's still pretty doable thanks to Cactar's damage. And with Eden up to level 100, the last thing I need to do is handle compatibility. This raises naturally as you summon and impacts the time it takes to summon. However, it raises very slowly for Eden. That is where the fat chocobo card comes in, because it can be modded into Love Gs, which boosts compatibility with every equipped GF by 20 per use, which should be very useful. And yes, I did in fact manage to use all those Love Gs on the wrong person somehow. No idea how, but we will be resetting shortly, when I realize that Eden is still taking a really long time to summon for some reason. Who can guess why? Anyway, reset done, let's do this again and actually get the correct compatibility up. And it's into the final boss. First thing I need to be sure of is I need to hope that Selphie is not in the starting party. The level of each of Ultimisha's forms is based on the characters present when that form starts. For most forms I can control when that shift happens, but not phase 1. That's bad, but probably not too bad. Selphie does raise up the party average, but only up to like 35 or so. I'll just run with it and hope. And the first part of the fight is just survive until my non-junction characters are all dead and absorbed into time. Once the main team is actually on the field, it's time to throw out a lot of damage. I have Holy Wars thanks to modding the Gilgamesh card. This prevents all damage and should help keep my GF safe since a lot of Ultimisha's attacks are percentage based and I can't heal my GFs. And then in comes Eden to deal all the damage. Eden bypasses the damage cap and can deal over 20,000 damage without boosting. I do have to be very careful throughout the entire fight though. Many of Ultimisha's forms have the ability to one-shot GFs completely, and if that happens to Eden, like on my first attempt, that's basically it for the run. The final phase of this fight has way too much health, even at this level, to be taken out by other summons, but thanks to Holy War negating damage, and Eden's ability to hit very hard, I can get into the final phase pretty quickly. From here, I need to be absolutely certain I am invulnerable or otherwise safe from Ultimisha one-shotting a GF, and after so many times watching a 2-minute summon sequence, Ultimisha starts talking. From there, damage is no longer a factor. I just need to hit Ultimisha with anything enough times to get her final dialogue to trigger, and there goes Ultimisha, absorbed back into time where she belongs. And that was Final Fantasy VIII, beaten Summoner only, and that sure was a time. It's been so long since I used GFs offensively in combat, because you shouldn't, that I really had no idea what I was getting into here, and having GFs completely ignore your character's stats was a complication. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone, and will remain that way. For now, if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.